and colleagues. Also, we wish a speedy recovery to our chairperson, Honorable Modise. Honorable members, please be advised that a meeting of the about mentioned committee has been scheduled to take place as indicated below. Date Tuesday, 29 November 2022, venue visual meeting platform. Time is 10 o'clock. Honorable members, there's agenda in front of you. I don't know whether, Aska, you can put it on the screen, the agenda. Honorable members, the agenda, it's a committee update and report by content, advice and committee secretary on the work done by the committee to date, pending legislation, international agreement, as well as oversight and briefing section to the completed. The second one is consideration and adoption of the minutes and reports. The third one is closing and farewell by chairperson and members. Please note that the quorum is required for the adoption of the minutes and reports. Also, please be advised that this notice serves as invitation to all legislature wishing to attend the session. Honorable members, if we have been appointed as an alternate member to the About Committee, please discuss your possible participation in this meeting with your party and or chief whip party. Honorable members, here is the agenda. Can we adopt the agenda?
Good morning, Honorable House Chairperson Ntube. Welcomes and adopt the agenda.
Thanks very much, Honorable Ntube, the supporter. Seconder.
Morning, Chair Nyambi. I'm seconding.
Thanks very much. Although my agenda doesn't have apology, can we get apologies?
Chairperson, we've received an apology from Mr. Arnolds and Ms. Mamrubela.
Okay, thanks very much. Members, here is the apology. Are we accepting the apology?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, thanks very much. After, can you please lead us on #1 committee update and report by the content advisor?
Mr. Uester will take first. Mr. Uester will present the document. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Oscar, can you perhaps share the document that I sent you, the PowerPoint, not the Word document? I haven't got those. Okay. Good morning, members. From my side, my role this morning is just quickly to run through the meetings, the oversights, and other committee activity that could be completed in the year, apart from legislation. I've left that to Oscar. And just quickly touching on planned matters of the committee that we could not get to as a committee and has to stand over to another year. The first important point to highlight is that the committee was able to have 19 meetings this year, of which only 6 meetings covered the planned themes of the committee. The remainder was dedicated to budget, APP, and legislation. The challenge that the committee is facing is that next year will probably be even more dedicated away from the oversight themes of the committee. And I just would like to highlight that normally the final cycle or couple of years of a parliamentary cycle becomes bogged down with legislation. In terms of briefings, the 6 briefings we had were listed. These focused on small-scale farmer support and settlement in agricultural land that is in government hands, as presented in the SONA of this year. Then the committee focused on the operationalization of the African Free Trade area, and specifically also how this could benefit South African farmers. The third meeting focused on report back from the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development on the committee's oversight visit to Limpopo. The fourth meeting, or a fourth meeting, sorry, I think it was out of sequence here, was the cost of recap to the department and the success of the program. It was wrapped up. It is not used by the department anymore, but the committee requested a briefing on what was achieved with this program. Then Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries also briefed the committee on progress on the small-scale commercial fishery sector and small-scale agriculture development in South Africa. This was a portfolio that was recently handed back to the DEFF or DFFE from Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries before their merger with Rural Development and Land Reform. So it was expected that the department has not achieved much in regard to progress since they just recently got the portfolio back. The final meeting listed was how the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development is communicating the progress or the lack thereof of second round land claims with claimants. So those were the briefings. It's obviously a bit skewed towards agriculture, land reform and rural development, but the oversight focus of the committee slightly corrected that to represent other departments in the committee's portfolio as well. Oscar, if we can move to the next one. The oversight visits, there were 2 oversight visits and 1 fact-finding visit. The 2 oversights went to the Northern Cape. Firstly, the mining districts of Kathu was visited to look at economic development outcomes of mining and of social and labor plans, benefits of the local region from these. And secondly, the Northern Cape claimants of the first and second phase of land claims were engaged to determine what economic benefits have been realized from these claims and what challenges are still being faced in terms of claim settlement. The final aspect covered by the committee was infrastructure development, electricity supply, and the supply of services in the environmental management portfolio in sparsely populated municipalities in the Western Cape. In Mpumalanga oversight, the focus was much more acute on 2 factors: the challenges of Eskom in terms of its old order power stations and air quality standards, local government competencies then also in monitoring the air quality of the municipalities under their control, and also the impact of Crocodile River pollution. Then the final trip was the Jagersfontein fact-finding mission with the focus of determining the initial roles and responsibilities of the departments overseen by the committee. Next one, Oscar, please. Okay, the main outcomes that were achieved was in the Northern Cape, the fact that the mining activity of the Northern Cape benefits simply does not reach municipalities and communities to the degree that would be expected. The social and labor plans have minimal impact, and the equitable share received by local municipalities is not supplemented with mining income And therefore the committee, the local municipalities are struggling to meet commitments, even though there's significant mining activity and income generation within the municipalities. In terms of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, there were a few challenges observed. The first was that there appears to be very little communication between the department and the claimants from the second round of land claims. And the department is very inaccessible to outlying communities, as there is very little outreach from the department to these committees. Communities, sorry, which means that there is a lack of information within the communities, and this causes significant challenges. In terms of the rural municipalities, it was also quite clear that although the municipalities are trying very hard to perform their mandated duties, they simply do not have the required funds to cover the distances and to effectively adhere to the mandates, especially where human capital are required for specialized portfolios, especially disaster response and other environmental monitoring and management portfolios. Next one, Aska. There's a duplicate. No, okay. In terms of the Jagersfontein disaster, a very important aspect that was highlighted was that there's potentially significant legislative shortcomings with the One Environmental System, as well as the department's total lack of response to fix this challenge. They basically, after 2007, where the High Court ruled in favor of De Beers, nothing was done by the department to either appeal the ruling or to amend legislation, which means that a great many role players, including the department, is cut out of sections of the exploitation industry that is not considered mining, but now considered reclamation. There appears to be significant loopholes in the regulation of such activity. The other, I was going to, if you can just pop back to that one. Thanks. The other challenge that needs to be addressed is that the department had the position that the lawsuit, the outcome of the lawsuit and the High Court's ruling only applies to the Free State, but this is unlikely, because if an outcome was reached in one province, then it's very likely that courts in all the other provinces will reach the same conclusion. This would create a significant management problem in terms of tailings dams. There are hundreds of these all over the country, and if the same ruling applies to all of these, then it means that the management of these dams are almost solely the responsibility of water and sanitation. And this department is very, very much short on environmental inspectors, and it would be very difficult for them to cover all of the tailings dams and all of the provinces efficiently. Thus, there's a very important problem to address here in terms of legislation. Next slide, Aska. Thank you. In terms of the Mpumalanga oversight, there is a similar finding in terms of underfunding and legislative challenges as was identified in the Northern Cape and Free State at the Jagersfontein incident. There appears to be an underfunding of district and local municipality competencies in terms of the performance of their role as implementers of climate change mitigation and adaptation plans. Again, the specialized officers that are charged with performing these roles are very much understaffed, and municipalities struggle to find the funds to appoint the required individuals. From the matters discussed around the Crocodile River pollution, there also appears to be a conflict between the constitutional mandate of forestry, fisheries, and the environment in terms of the constitutionally mandated role of biodiversity management and the management of international agreements, such as the Ramsar Agreement, and then the current legislation pertaining to the management of aquatic resources, which pretty much nest these with water and sanitation. So the question there that needs to be resolved is which of these responsibilities are considered first and foremost the highest order of legislation? Is it the constitutional mandate of forestry, fisheries, and the environment, or is it the national legislation of water and sanitation, because it creates management challenges? The final observation in terms of the challenges of ESCOM and the departments in the IRP, the published every couple of years, was that there is severe pressure on this as a result of the court ruling that the department must immediately comply to strict environmental discharge legislation in terms of air quality. And if they cannot comply, then they cannot operate some of the older order power plants. Now, what the committee had learned from this is that most of the JET plans and the plans at which renewables would be entered into the energy mix was based on a gradual shutdown up to 2035. But the court ruling has shortened that by 10 years, which means that the plans are under severe pressure and there's a likelihood of energy shortages in the near future. The study tour, which I will cover last, is focusing on this challenge. Next slide, please, Oscar. Then in terms of the meetings and looking back at the strategic plan of the committee, the next couple of slides looks at where meeting focuses did progress in terms of the focus areas and where issues had to stand over and what therefore remains for the remainder of the term. In terms of focus areas where the committee had progress, was support of agricultural co-ops and CPAs in land reform projects. The committee progressed there in terms of oversight. Then local government challenges related to waste management and also air quality management. Progress was made there. Policy development and progress in land reform was focused on. The committee could also focus on small-scale commercial fishery development, although it is still lagging behind what would be expected of the department to achieve. And then finally, the committee managed to focus on Paris Agreement implementation and also opportunities for the provincial and local government spheres to become involved in the process of mitigation and adaptation implementation. Next slide, please, Oscar. Okay, focus areas that the committee had to allow to stand over to the future of the parliamentary cycle was prioritizing legislative reviews based on public engagement outcomes and public recommendations from Chapter 9 institutions, high-level panel, and ad hoc committees. As the committee would have experienced, the NCOP only workshopped this activity in the last week. Thus, the committee had not been able to focus on it and would be able to focus on it from next year onwards. And then the planned focus on legislation and policy development related to oil and gas had to stand over because not all the bills that the committee expected to receive had been referred to the committee yet. Focus areas that had a partial overlap with meetings held was focusing on CG and IGR breakdown that occurs between the DMRE and local governments in terms of LED and IDP. Then the final topic is focus areas that will likely fall away due to shifts in planning. And the only one that is listed here was the alternative study tour options. The energy sector proposal was favored by the committee, and therefore the alternative looking at agriculture decentralization falls away simply because there can only be a single motivation for a study tour. Next slide, please, Oscar. Then potential focus areas that remain after the 2020 year is social, environmental, and economic impacts caused by illegal mining, derelict and ownerless mines, and acid mine drainage. Causes, impact, and potential resolution for the rapid expansion of mining into prime agricultural land, watershed, and sensitive ecological areas. And what can be added to this focus area after the Mpumalanga oversight is also the impact of mining expansion on human settlements. It's not in this focus area, but it definitely should be added. The third one is identifying resource requirements in a realistic timeline for the finalization of all outstanding land claims. Although the second set of land claims was focused on the finality or the understanding of when all outstanding land claims will be finalized is not quite within the scope of the committee yet. The final focus area that remains is the role of environmental legislation in the management of commercially important biological resources. The committee did not get a briefing from the department on that. Next slide, please, Oscar. Right, the second last slide just looks at the needed actions and challenges for next year. The key actions for next year, what I think the Secretariat would really like to achieve is a change in which a legacy report is produced. Normally, the way the committee support section develops these legacy reports is that they are developed at the end of a 5-year cycle, which means that the existing committee whose work is reported on seldom receives this legacy report. My focus next year would include trying to complete this legacy report as far as possible and to present it to the committee before Parliament rises at the end of the term. I think it's an important change in the way that the committees work that's necessary, because there's a need for a committee to receive a report on what exactly the term had achieved. And the only way that we're going to achieve this is if we have 2 content support staff, which would likely be the case. The committee would most likely have a researcher by next year, which would speed up the process in which this report can be completed. The key challenge listed for next year, as alluded to before, is that the committee is very likely to be busy with legislation as the main focus of the year, which means that some of the focus areas that the committee had to let stand over from last year might also, or that the committee couldn't get to this year, will also remain a challenge for next year. And then the final slide, please, Oscar. Just some detail on the proposed study tour. The greater details of exactly where the committee would like to go and what they would be doing there typically gets developed once the application has been approved and the committee secretariat can liaise with those countries through high commissions in the targeted countries. but I think it is necessary just to give the committee greater detail on what has been submitted as the focus of the study tour. The proposed focus of the study tour is South Africa's planned just transition towards a low carbon economy, focusing on the energy sector and more specifically renewables. As alluded to earlier, the motivation in short is that South Africa's timeline for this transition is under severe pressure, and at the speed at which it has to be achieved if Eskom has to comply to the High Court ruling shortening the period to the JET, is that it might become underfunded because planned activities have to be performed in a shorter period of time. The key concerns that motivates the study to a focus is as the IRP updates does not decrease fossil fuel use. The planning did not bring renewables up to the level that's required, especially if there's a truncated period of shutting down old order power stations that rely on coal. This has to be contrasted against the environmental concerns around air quality challenges experienced in the high priority area, with the legal action swinging towards the air quality improvement requirements rather than the energy challenges that the country is experiencing. It is unlikely that there would be the required extension in coal use that Eskom has alluded to as necessary for preventing energy shortages in the near future. The last concern is, as mentioned, the accelerated timelines for the decommissioning of old order power stations. During the presentations that the committee received in Mpumalanga, it became clear that right now there is not funding and plans in place to match the power generation capacity of power plants that have to be shut down. Although there are plans in place for renewable resource use in the same power plants or close to in the same province, none of these would provide exactly the same amount of energy as what is being lost at the point of shutting down the power station. 2 countries were selected for the study tour. These are Chile and Uruguay. Now, the main reason for turning to South America for the study tour is that very few Western examples has exactly the same set of challenges as South Africa. Some countries have got resources that South Africa doesn't have, such as better chances for water generation through hydroelectric plants, or they have hydrothermal capacities, or they have a greater reliance on nuclear power station, or they were never really that reliant on coal to begin with. There's very little that can be learned from such countries because the pressure to shift from coal to an alternative power source is not that great. So to just run through the rationale of these 2 countries, Chile, although they have a smaller population and they've, oops, Oscar, can I have that slide back? Although Chile has got a much smaller population than South Africa, they had a similar coal dependence prior to their attempts to shift towards alternative energy resources. They therefore had to make plans that is similar to what South Africa has to implement if they want to reach their JET predicted targets that were set for 2035. Chile is one of the first countries that has become successful in promoting renewable energy production, and their success relied heavily on active participation of all stakeholders in the transformation. So from this country perspective, the committee can learn from how a decentralized approach, not just looking at government actions in terms of energy generation, but also all other stakeholders, private and international, to achieve their targets. Uruguay, as the second country, has seen rapid transformation in its use of wind energy, although this started from a very small base. A $1 million grant along with $6 million of national public co-funding has mushroomed into a $2 billion mostly private investment target that had been reached by the end of 2015. Now, this was achieved, although, again, the country is smaller than South Africa, by dedicating a larger percentage of GDP. Oh, sorry, even though the country is relatively small in terms of economic capacity, the country received, as a percentage of GDP, the largest share of funding support of any country in the world for a shift to renewables, and has the greatest capacity for wind generation in terms of population globally. And this was achieved through regulatory reform that created an enabling environment for renewable energy development. Study tours should always focus on policy and legislation as the basis for its motivation. And therefore, these two countries would provide exactly that. Chile in terms of policy and Uruguay in terms of legislatory reforms needed. In a nutshell, therefore, that is the rationale behind the planned study tour. I think Aska would be in a better position to provide any updates on where the application process is right now. And that is the end of the content section wrap up of 2022. So, Chair, I would now give back to Chair or to Aska in terms of completing, unless members would want to ask questions immediately. I leave that up to Chair to decide.
Thanks very much, Mr. Johnston. Honorable members, here is the committee update report. Aska, I don't know whether we adopt it or what are we doing after he finished to do the presentation to us.
No, Chair. It was merely a feedback. It was merely a feedback and a discussion should any member wish to discuss.
Okay, thanks very much, Oscar. There's one hand, Honorable Lapskachen.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I had quite a struggle this morning with my Wi-Fi, but it's sorted out now. Thank you very much for that report. And Chair, I just want to say I actually agree with Mr. Jooste in the way we write the reports, and I also support the idea of having a sort of a legacy or a plan report, not only on a 5-year basis, but on a yearly basis. And then I know that we haven't got there, but I've read it. I noticed that we have a lot of legislation that still has to be processed next year. Something that really concerns me is that we actually, out of all our meetings, we had only kind of 6 meetings for oversight. And then the other thing that concerns me that, you know, we actually focused a lot on one of the departments this year. And that I don't blame anyone. As a committee, when we did the planning and the strategic planning, we decided on these things. I actually would like us to this in next year also focus a little bit on the Waste Bureau and the waste management within the department. And if I have to keep that until the strategic planning, I do understand. And yeah, I actually would like, if anybody, if Oscar knows if where we are in the process of the study, so that, you know, I've been through an experience where I actually was informed about the study tour finally 3 or 5 days before we had to leave. I don't want to be in that position again, but thank you very much, Chair. That's all I want to say.
Thanks very much, Honorable Lapskachen. Honorable members, I think what Honorable Lapskachen was saying, it was a comment on what maybe we need to do for next year. Honorable members, is it any member want also to participate on this report? If it's none, Oscar?
Yes, Chairperson. I'd like
Are we-
to, I would like to put forth, I'm just trying to find the document. There we go. This is the, can everybody see this document?
Yes?
Okay, this is the legislation that is coming to the committee. The National Veld and Forest Fire Amendment Bill, currently with the Portfolio Committee, they aim to finish the bill. Their aim is to finish the bill on the 2nd of December. The climate change bill is another one. They are still busy with it, so they are still far from finish. Then for minerals, we've got the Upstream Petroleum Resource Development Bill. And they also, the Portfolio Committee is still busy with oral submissions. Then we have the Preservation and Development of Agricultural Land Bill, which the PC still has to schedule. The Animal Protection Bill, which they still have to schedule. The Plant Health Phytosanitary Bill, which they still have to schedule. And then the Deeds Registries Amendment Bill, which they still have to schedule as well. Those are the bills before us. The international agreements, now this is a bit of a predicament because these two international agreements were tabled by the minister on the 11th of June and the 7th of October. Normally, when the minister tables these things, the NCOP will refer these to the relevant committee. They did not refer this to our committee. So we stumbled upon this, so which means the committee will have to process these two international agreements as well. So in short, we have 7 bills, 5 of which are 76s, 2 75s, and 2 international agreements. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Oscar. There's a hands from Honorable Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Baba.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chair, it is very important that we as a committee, agree on certain timelines around what we can accept to process going into the last part of our term. Out of experience from previous times where a lot of legislation, and I mean, 76 legislation take a lot of time to process, as it have to go to the provinces and all of that. And with previous court judgments, we need to give it the necessary time to do proper public participation. So we must not allow the National Assembly's portfolio committees that's been sitting on these legislation for years now to dump it on us on the last minute and then cause us to do a bad job of it where the courts are going to rule against us. So we need to be very clear and very, very firm around that, and the communication between our committee and the portfolio committee in saying if it doesn't reach us by a certain time, we will not be dealing with that in this term. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Honorable Smith. Honorable members, that's the comment that is coming from the members. I think, Oscar, we are done on our number one update.
Yes, Chair. The next would be the adoption of the minutes and the report. And I'm
Chair,
Yes,
Chair,
Chairperson.
before we go there, I just want to check with our sister Aska whether our sister committee has finalized the document for the study tour, because up to so far we were waiting for them to bring that document so that we can submit to Papa. Last time when I spoke to them, they will say they will bring it. I don't know how far are they now.
Okay, Oscar.
Chairperson, they did bring it. I will send the document for the chairperson's signatures, and then we can submit it to the relevant house chairs' offices. Chairpersons just need to sign the document, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, thanks very much, Oscar. I think we can continue with our agenda in terms of the consideration and adoption of the minutes and reports.
Yes. The minutes of the 8th of November is before us.
Yes, I hope members also have it. I have it on my side. Honorable members, here is the minutes of the 8th November 2022.
I move for the minutes, for the adoption of the minutes, Chair.
Thanks very much, honorable member. The seconder.
I second, Chairperson BB.
Okay, thanks very much, honorable BB. Okay, we've got 2 honorable members. Then the second one is the Tuesday, 22 November 2022. Here's the agenda and the minutes and members that were present on that day. I hope members did go through it.
Yes, Chairperson, we did go through it. BB, move for the adoption of the minutes.
Okay, thanks very much, honorable BB. The seconder.
Chairperson.
Yeah, Baba.
My name is Zolani Mkiva. I second the adoption of the minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, honorable members. Thank you, honorable Mkiva. Honorable members, we've got only 2 minutes that were being adopted today. I think now we can go to number 3, whereby the chairperson must do the closing and the farewell.
Chair, we still have to do the Mpumalanga oversight.
Huh?
The oversight report for Mpumalanga.
Oh,
That
I've
will
got
be the last.
to me, I've got only the 8 November and the 22 November. Can you
It's
show
on the
us
screen.
the screen?
It's on the screen, Chair.
Okay, okay. Okay, honorable members.
Okay. Chair,
I
I
am
move
rushing
for the
to
adoption. I
argue
move
for
for
the
the
Congress.
adoption of the report.
Okay, honorable PP, move the adoption of the report and the seconder.
Chairperson, let me make it a tradition that I second the Honorable BP on the adoption of this report. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Honorable Mkiva.
Mr. Mkiva was not present
it-
during the oversight. He unfortunately cannot second.
Can I second?
Mudise seconds.
Thanks very much. Honorable members, thank you very much. And now I would like to invite our chairperson, although she's not well, but I think that you can try, Mama. Slowly, don't be fast, to do the closing remarks.
I will ask the Honorable Nyambi to do it. And then after Honorable Nyambi, I will start with Honorable De Brain. After Honorable De Brain, it will be Honorable Mamukausa. After Mamukausa, it will be Honorable Lawaskafni and Honorable Nyambi. This is our farewell notes.
Thanks very much, Chair. Honorable members, in that order, Honorable Nyambi.
No, Nyambi will be the last.
The last, okay.
Yeah. The brain.
Honorable De Brain.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Chair, from my side, I would just like to thank everyone from the committee for the spirit in which we can handle our committee meetings, and especially with the oversights or the oversight visits. I really think we do it in good spirit, and I wish we can continue it for the next year. So from my side, I would only wish to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and thank you for the spirit in which we are handling things. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Number 2, the second one is Honorable Lapskar.
Thank you very.
Before Honorable
Thank you.
EFF.
Pardon?
EFF. It's EFF and then Mama Labuskakni will come. If
EFF is not on the platform.
Okay. So it means it's Mama Labuskakni.
Thank you very much, Chair. And from our side, I firstly like to thank the professional staff for all the arrangements right through the year for each and every meeting and for the oversights and everything that went into that. We do know and we do realize that we are not always that easy, and we change our minds about flights and all these things. And you are the people who have to cope with that. A special word of thanks then to Oscar, Kobus, and Amanda for what you are doing, and very often what we do not, or what we take just as things that should be done. If you are not there, I don't think we will be able to function. And then also to the chair and all the other colleagues, thank you. Also agree for the spirit in which we conduct our committees. thank you very much. I haven't been in this committee that much this year because I'm also serving on the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. But thank you for when we are driving issues in this committee, that it doesn't become a political play ball, that we concentrate on the issues. And I do hope that we're going to be able to continue in that spirit. And then also to the chairperson, I hope you are going to have a speedy recovery. And to the rest of the committee, I hope that you do find some time to spend with yourself and find some to recuperate and rest, because next year is going to be a difficult year again with all the legislation as we've seen, as well as sort of the last year before the end of the 6th Parliament. So may you have a very blessed holiday season, and take care, and hope to see you next year. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Honorable Member. The third one, Chair.
The last one is Papa.
Thank you, Mamas. Get well
Jamo.
very soon. Thank you, Mamas.
There's
Hello.
another voice. Okay, continue, Honorable Nyambi.
Yes, Mama. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Greetings
Loud
to your
and
good,
clear.
greetings to your good self. Greetings to honorable members. On behalf of the entire committee, I'm echoing the sentiments, wishing Mama, the chairperson, a speedy recovery. Let me also take this opportunity to thank all of the members for the contribution, tireless effort. We know that we regard committees as the engine of Parliament, and without them, there's nothing. Also, thank you, Mama House Chairperson, for always coming handy as and when there's that need to fill the gap and assist. Under your leadership, we are more than fine. Let me also wish everybody as members of the committee that we have been this family working together, moving the length and breadth of our respective provinces we represent in the NCOP. It's a journey that we have traveled up to this far. We enjoyed working with each other. We understand each other weaknesses. We wish each other some birthday, happy birthday. We wish each other speedy recovery as and when there's that need. We've been that family. Let's make sure that we keep ourselves safe and make sure that we are more than re-energized for 2023. Merry Christmas to everybody and a prosperous 2023. This committee is a family. On behalf of Mama, a speedy recovery. We don't like the voice we're hearing. We like you when you are in spirit shouting to all of us. Thanks a million times to everybody.
Mama, love you. Thank
Thank
you
you very
so
much.
much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mamas.
I love you, Mama Swam. Happy birthday. Still a birthday to you.
Thanks very much, honorable members. Chair, I don't know whether you wanted to say anything. I want to close the meeting.
No.
Okay. Honorable members, thanks very much. The meeting is adjourned. 2 o'clock. There's a sitting at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mama.
Thank you, Mamas.
Mama.
Mama.
Speedy recovery, whether Mama, please. Use you again.
Who will let chairperson?
Recording stop.